feel something fresh, something new. What once was morning dew is now a shiny coat of ice along the branch, thin like glass and glinting merrily at noon. What was full is now bare, a clutch of red berries on the Nandina, pecked away by waxwings, leaving nothing but sharp footprints in the snow. Curtains of leaves fall away so that we can see each other in winter, to nod and say, Happy New Year, in this moment of cold togetherness we share. No matter how far apart we are, we have this moment, these footprints, these red berries, and this crisp air of something new. Welcome to Games in the Glade, a stress-free gaming news and reviews podcast. I'm your host, Tina Kelly, and I'll guide you through some recent news in the gaming world and give my review of a game I think you'll enjoy. Today I'll be discussing the Hugo Award-winning video game Hades, Final Fantasy XVI, and the Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster updates, Hideo Kojima's new projects, new teasers for Haunted Chocolatier, and teasers from the team that worked on Chicory, and some free games to play on itch.io. I'll be reading your response to last week's question about your most anticipated games of 2022, giving my review of Let's Build a Zoo, the game that the Friends of the Forest voted for on Patreon, and finishing up by asking you about your video game resolutions of 2022. Let's get into the news. Hades, the groundbreaking roguelite that was my personal game of the year in 2020, has won a Hugo Award this year, making it the first video game ever to win a commendation from the Hugo Awards. The game, developed by Supergiant, won the category Best Video Game, which was a one-off category for this year's event, which annually celebrates innovations in science fiction and fantasy. Greg Kasavin tweeted out a video responding to the award, accepting it gracefully on the behalf of the team and lauding how far games have come as a storytelling medium. He said that at Supergiant, they've tried to marry the traditions of fantasy and science fiction literature with the unique interactive component of video games to create these worlds that feel alive as you navigate them. Hades won the category besting Spiritfarer, The Last of Us 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and also Blaseball, the unique web browser-based baseball horror simulator that took Twitter by storm last year, developing a tapestry of absurdity woven by the fans. Congratulations to Hades for winning and to the other nominees for the acknowledgement. I certainly hope to see the category return in future years. Video games have long been the perfect medium, in my opinion, to tell gripping stories of science, fantasy, and speculation. So many games address pressing issues like climate change and social reform, shown through the lens of compelling protagonists and full, rich worlds that beg to be explored, understood, and remembered. It's a shame that this category hasn't existed until recently, but hopefully the Hugo Awards can continue to uplift games that change the way we see games, like Hades did, as well as how we see the world, as sci-fi and fantasy can. Thank you to Zach Sweitzen for his article Hades Wins a Hugo Award on Kotaku for the information on this year's nominees and winners. I'll link to that article in the description of this episode. Next up, some Final Fantasy news. Final Fantasy XVI's producer, Naoki Yoshida-san, released some information on December 27th regarding Final Fantasy XVI, addressing the delay in development caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The team was hoping to have more to show for the game, which was announced in September of 2021 during the Sony showcase, but has struggled with communication and delivery between the creators working on the game, who are largely working from home. For now, they're working on increasing the graphic resource quality, refining combat mechanics, fleshing out individual battles, putting the finishing touches on cutscenes, and conducting overall graphical optimization to fully polish the game, according to Yoshida-san. The team is planning on revealing more about the game in the spring of 2022, so I'll let you know about that when the reveal hits. Best of luck to the development team. As we all know, a good game can take all the time it needs. If you would like to read Yoshida-san's entire post, I'll link to that in the description of this episode. Sticking with this theme, though, there's news on the Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. Just as with Final Fantasy XVI, the development team needs a little bit more time to polish Final Fantasy VI, though we do have a release date on the remaster, February 2022. For folks who pre-purchased the game or the remaster bundle, the developers have added some items to be released in February, including special soundtracks like a time-lapse remix of Locke's theme and an instrumental version of the Aria di Mezzo Cantare. I hope I said that right. These tracks are joining 3 other remixes which are already bundled with the Pixel Remaster. And additionally, players who pre-purchased the single game or the bundle will also get 2 more types of Pixel Remaster series wallpapers to go with the other 2 bonus wallpapers. If you'd like to get a look at everything that's included in the pre-purchase bundle, I'll include a link to the tweet with all the information in this episode's description. Hideo Kojima announced on New Year's Day that he's starting new work in earnest and trying a radical new project. He's hoping to get his video team based in LA going, as well as piling a radio project onto his plate. He's tweeted in the past week, on December 31st, about experimenting with new titles, so it seems that Kojima-san might be working steadily on a variety of things. Now, there's a lot of rumors going around as to what he might be working on, with Metal Gear fans hoping for a reclamation of the brand, or Death Stranding fans hoping for a sequel. But I think it's best to wait for more certain news. The best way to avoid disappointment, friends, is to guard yourself against speculation. Hello everybody, this is Editing Tina here with a little interjection. I've got a bit more Kojima news for you. In a new tweet that hit on Tuesday the 4th when this episode is going up, Kojima Productions announced that Death Stranding Director's Cut is coming to PC for Epic and Steam in the spring of 2022. I'm kind of mixed on the news because personally I started playing the original on PC last year, and I'm not sure if I should stop playing that run now and restart the experience through the director's cut when it comes out, or if I should just watch somebody else play it and pick up what's new. But either way, that's some good, solid, concrete news from Kojima Productions today. Now, I covered Haunted Chocolatier in the first episode of this podcast. Now we've got some more glimpses into Concerned Ape's latest project. On Christmas Day, Concerned Ape, the developer of the farming simulator hit indie Stardew Valley, put out a tweet with holiday wishes and a screenshot from his upcoming game, showing a laboratory stocked with books, beakers, flasks, pressurized pipes, experiments, and ghost-swearing safety goggles. There's a slotted table in this laboratory suggesting that players might be able to craft or brew potions, like the ones on the table and the ones carried by the lab ghosts. Then on January 1st, he showed off 2 more screenshots, one of which looks like a snow-covered 2-story home with a rather gothic exterior, and the other of a more summery forested area. This forest has all manners of trees and ferns, although 2 things stand out to me. There's a purple slime hopping around, and above it, a parked bus with some strange decorations on it, including a chair and a root vegetable garden on the roof. It looks like Haunted Chocolatier is going to be just as vibrant and whimsical as Stardew, if not more so. I'll let you know when there's any more updates on that, or you can also follow the developer at twitter.com/concernedape. Here's some more news from the team that worked on Chicory: A Colorful Tale, which was my game of the year last year. Greg Lobanov put out a short announcement on Twitter that he's working on something new with the rest of the team that worked on Chicory, and he included in his tweet a gif of an odd little hopping creature, something like a bird, cat, sheep, rabbit, kangaroo hybrid with brown legs and blue and yellow markings on its face. Alexis Dean Jones, another member of the Chicory team, tweeted out another image, this time showing off the little critter's small arms hidden in its fluffy, adorable body. Both Greg and Alexis have followed their tweets with searches for concept artists to help work out on this new project, with Alexis specifying that they're looking for people to help design creatures, and that the work starts in February. So it looks like the team is hard at work on the next title. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about this new project. And you can find Greg Lobanov at Greg Lobanov on Twitter, no underscores or anything in that. And Alexis Dean Jones is at Musclewing on Twitter, also no underscores on that one. This week was a little light on the news, so I thought I'd do my own digging through the free games that are on itch.io. Many of the games I'm about to cover are under development, so rather than shine a big, bright spotlight on them, drawing attention to what might be lacking, I'd like to bring a warm glow to them and tell you what I liked and what's promising about them. I'd like to call this segment the Indie Nightlight, a little comforting beacon. These games are all name your price on itch.io, so if you enjoy them, please consider throwing some coin to the devs so they can continue to make cool games. Let's start off with a very inventive title. That Really Boils My Piss is an indie game toy by Hilo 100. If you've not heard of toys in this sense, by the way, it's an interactive game-ish thing with mechanics and a scenario usually, but without the multiple levels or a narrative. In the case of Boils My Piss, great title, by the way, the scene is that you're a blue-haired person in a corporate meeting, and you shout into your real-life microphone to blow away the people and objects that are in the room, eventually destroying the room itself. Now, I can't risk shouting because the last time I screamed in anger, my throat was so torn up for several months. So I can confirm at least that a loud mic check sound like bum 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 or tapping on your microphone and stuff like that works just as well to obliterate the stuffy workroom. It's a nice toy for blowing off steam, and it is free or pay your own price if you'd like to chip in some cash to the devs. Next up is The Insector, a game jam game based on bugs. The Insector is about two inspector bugs that investigate a crime scene. You get to talk to witnesses, speak with the robbed wasps, and investigate the crime scene in this one. The game wraps up shortly after the investigation, so there's no resolution to the crime yet, but there is a chance the devs might pursue this project later to flesh it out. It's got really good bones. Wait, do bugs have bones? It's got good bug bones, is what I want to say. The Right Shot is another game I tried out recently on itch. It's a Diner Dasher arcade game where you serve devilish customers drinks in an effort to become the employee of the month. This one's got 4 unique levels to play through, with obstacles to navigate around, like bombs, frozen ice slicks, and rats to keep you on your toes. The Right Shot is the effort of Maya Hill, Lilo Puek, and Louise Dit Danjo for their internship at the Game Bakers. I look forward to seeing what other work they do later on the road. And this one, again, like all of these, is name your own price. Return by Dead Unicorn is an apocalyptic side-scroller with really lovely pixel art and parallax backgrounds. You play as an escapee of a war-ravaged planet who gets in a ship bound for interstellar colonies, but you find yourself back on the planet after several decades of cryosleep have passed and your ship has autopiloted itself back to the homeworld for repairs. Return controls fairly well, and it was really fun to play, starting you off in a forest, searching for ship parts to repair your own ship, and flowing into other areas to explore, like the caves beneath a fortification where golems dwell. This is just the demo for Return, so keep an eye out for updates and the full release of this one to see where the game takes you next. Speaking of next, Rhythm Land is next, and it's an indie take on the Rhythm Heaven franchise, playable on your Game Boy or a Game Boy emulator. It starts off really well. Your first game is about a skateboarding dude who has to leap over junk rolling at them on the road, like barrels and cars. You just push A to make him hop over the thing. And just like in the Rhythm Heaven series, you have to do so to the rhythm of the music. The second offering was a little more difficult to parse because the visual cues for flipping this pancake in this pancake flipping minigame were kind of lacking, but I did enjoy the third game that's offered, which is a multi-directional battleship shooter. Now, there's no tutorials, so you either have to mash your keyboard or your Game Boy if you downloaded this game and put it on a Game Boy cart and played it on a real Game Boy in order to figure out what the buttons are for each game, or you can consult the wiki, which the game page actually links to. But this seems to be an ongoing project, so I'm hoping these game devs return to the game and expand on it to add more games and tutorials for the pre-existing ones. Don't let the need for a Game Boy emulator trip you up, though. The same boy is an easy to download emulator, and you can just drag and drop the game file into the Samboy window and you're just in the game. It's great. Another really interesting game I tried was Odysseus by Albin Dahlheim, which was a very promising tech demo. You play as Nia, who wakes up with a voice telling her to destroy Odysseus, a force of evil. Along the way, you find Noe, or No, who nurses Nia back to health after she faints. The combat for this one is tight, with turn-based combat, the button press dodges of something like Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and the menu aesthetics inspired by Persona 5. Nia and Noe combat foes in their pursuit of Odysseus, gaining levels and new skills along the way. The environment is interesting, and there are a few rudimentary puzzles thrown in to show off different styles of play, but Odysseus isn't much more than a show of the developer's skills. The characters have little motivation to do what they're told, and Noe questions why Nia attacks people, to which she responds, "They look evil." And the game ends after the confrontation with Odysseus, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes to reach. The story ends with the developer stepping in and explaining that this is the end of the game, in an albeit comical manner. Despite the weak story, I do think Odysseus is worth a play if you want to see something technically impressive. And though the developer has stated on the game's page that they're not currently planning on expanding the story or returning to these characters, I think there's somebody to keep an eye on for future releases. Last episode, I asked you what games you're looking forward to the most in 2022. I got a few responses to this one, so let's hear what you're hyped for. First up, a good friend of mine, Okadrian, responded saying that he's putting all his eggs in the Forspoken basket, referring to the upcoming Square Enix title with protagonists from New York thrown into a strange and fantastic land. Adrian adds that he's also looking forward to Nightgale, which is a shared world survival crafting minigame set in a Victorian-inspired world, as well as the planet of Lana. You might have seen a trailer for Planet of Lana at the 2021 PlayStation Showcase. Adrian picked Lana for its beautiful hand-painted art, the puzzle elements of the gameplay, and the stark contrast between the protagonist and their sizable opponents. Before reading Adrian's response, I wasn't too impressed with Planet of Lana, but he makes some strong points, so I'm going to put this one on my list as well. By the way, Okadrian goes by Okadrian, that's Okaydrian, on all platforms, and he's a great watch on Twitch. If you haven't stopped by his stream, please give him a watch. He's very insightful. Prebsky, who goes by It's Prebsky on Twitter, said that instead of running a gamut of AAA titles, he would recommend two smaller role-playing titles, Weird West and Kingdoms of the Dump, which he said both look exceptional in their respect to older, more classic titles. Let me touch on Weird West for a bit. Weird West is a Devolver Digital title developed by Wolf Eye Studio, and it's set for release on March 31st of this year, 2022. Incidentally, a tweet thread popped up on my feed Monday when I was writing this from the lead engineer of Weird West named Borat, or @Plushapo on Twitter, describing the procedural story systems that the game employs. He discusses the 5 bespoke main storylines of the game and how they differ from the other procedural elements of the game, which he divides into vignettes, which are small, dynamic events like walking past a saloon bar fight and choosing to break it up, bigger encounters, which might load a custom level on top of the existing location, quests, kind of like the kind you'd pull off a bounty board, objectives on those quests, and permanent place scenarios that trigger in abandoned locations. It's super involved, and it's dependent on so many factors, including where the player is at in the storyline, so I think if you're a fan of procedurally generated games, Weird West will be a good one to play. And if you want to learn more on how that works, I've linked the developer's tweet thread in the links below this episode. It's a good read, honestly. Sarp Kargi, aka Quantum Witcher, echoed Prebsky's enthusiasm for Weird West, adding that he's a little glad it won't be out until March because he'll be very busy with the new God of War, Ragnarok, and Elden Ring. And speaking of Elden Ring, everyone is speaking of Elden Ring, including Pack, aka Pack_Pete on Twitter, who's also looking forward to Elden Ring, as am I, of course. I just wonder if I'll be able to play it on release. I don't know. Strawberry Hat, which is Show Cold Ichigo on Twitter, is looking forward to Nintendo's offerings this year, including Bayonetta 3, Splatoon 3, Breath of the Wild 2, and Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which fittingly I had forgotten about until they mentioned it. It's going to be tough affording all these new AAA titles this year. Strawberry Hat is also looking forward to the Switch release of Omocat's indie title Omori, which I think I covered in a previous episode. And there's so many Switch games coming out. So if you got a Switch for Christmas, you're going to have plenty to play. Molly Olive, aka Good Vibes, came prepared with a slab of great titles, some of which I had not heard about. She mentioned Stray, which is a game where you're a cat with a computer backpack interfacing with humans, and Planet of Lana, which Adrian had mentioned, but also titles like Paralives, which is a dollhouse sim game kind of like The Sims, with an extremely customizable character creation engine. Silt, which is a limbo-style game in which you, a diver, project your consciousness into aquatic creatures around you to explore the strange and terrifying depths of the underwater abyss. And Red Sails, a minimalist exploration game where you sail the sands to find people to join your dwindling clan of explorers. Molly also listed Far Changing Tides, which is a vehicle adventure starring a boy sailing to find a new home, and The Wandering Village, which she said was her most anticipated game of the whole group. It's a symbiotic city building game set atop of an ancient creature, and it's currently in early access. Most of these games don't have any set dates, so we're all kind of just crossing our fingers and hoping that this year will be the year that they come out. Okay, 2 more reader responses. We've got Jay Dizzle's recommendations for 2022, including Horizon Forbidden West, which he says he's into almost solely for the visuals, which I agree are gobsmackingly beautiful. Elden Ring, like Pack and Quantum Witcher stated, and the Saints Row reboot, which I hadn't even heard about, but apparently it's set in a desert this time? Jay is also looking forward to Starfield, which is that new Bethesda joint, as well as the Cyberpunk 2077 graphics update for the PS5, Xbox, and PC. Last up, it's frequent responder Chain Snake, who's looking forward to the PC release of the original God of War, 2018, of course. Pokemon Arceus, which is the first full venture into an open-ish world that Pokemon has attempted. Elden Ring, of course. Final Fantasy Origin, which I think involves a dude who wants to fight chaos. Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is a Borderlands spin-off. And Stalker 2, a sequel long in the making. Honestly, there are so many games coming out in 2022, and I haven't even caught up with my pile from 2021. But thanks to you all, I have a lot to look forward to. So thank you for weighing in, everybody. All right, it's time for this episode's review. This game was voted on as the next game to play by my patrons. It's Let's Build a Zoo, developed by Spring Loaded and published by No More Robots, who've also published Yes Your Grace, Hypnospace Outlaw, and Not Tonight. Let's Build a Zoo is a zoo sim game that features a unique morality system, allowing you to make choices like buying animals off of the black market for evil points, or accepting animals from a forest fire for good points. You can build farms if you have enough morality, or build animal processing plants if you lean into the dark side. Let's Build a Zoo has so many options to explore. The game starts you off with tutorial tasks and eases you into running a zoo by introducing you to some basic animals like rabbits and geese. Then it has you trade the rare bred variants of those animals to zoos across the world to gain access to more interesting creatures like capybaras, snakes, meerkats, and so on. You get introduced to the CRISPR cloning and splicing capabilities very early, and surprisingly, making a spliced creature with the head of a capybara and the body of a snake is not an immoral act, but instead a pretty big draw to your zoo. The game is great at incremental upgrades that feel well timed, as well as letting you select how you'd like to improve things with your research point skill tree. You can unlock new kinds of enclosures that you'll need for different kinds of animals. To house your snakes comfortably, for example, you'll need to unlock the desert enclosure. And you can also get things like new facilities, like the breeding den, where you can select certain pairs of animals to mate so that you don't have to leave it all to chance. Or you can get access to new shops and stalls, like a churro vendor or a pizza joint, to keep your park goers fed and staying longer at your park. In your skill tree, you'll run into some unlocks that require morality levels, as I mentioned before. You can't have both moral and immoral points, they negate each other. So you need to lean one way or the other for your playthrough. But honestly, there's so much to do and explore that you won't feel like you've made the wrong choice. I didn't. Although my choice was to be a goody two shoes because I can't stand being the bad guy in a video game. As such, I can't tell you much about the immoral path aside from all the options I found and not selected, like recycling your own sewage in your customers' drinking water, or burning your trash and making excess CO2 but avoiding costly trash removal fees, or using an abattoir to harvest meat from the cows, pigs, and chickens you could otherwise be showing off at your zoo. If you go the goody two shoes route, like me, you'll be able to plant and harvest crops instead of harvesting animal flesh. You'll be able to recycle the methane produced by your animals as renewable energy, or harvest rainwater to avoid paying the local water company. In essence, you won't be missing out on anything from the evil experience, aside from not being able to twirl your mustache and rub your hands together evilly. Also, hey, this is a heads up to anyone just starting the game. If you're looking forward to certain upgrades, like, for example, how to get bigger, better buses, like I was for a long time in the game, there's a nifty feature that allows you to highlight all the skills available that relate to that field. For example, buses. If you click on the word transport on the left, I know this doesn't make sense unless you're literally playing the game, but I need to tell you this. It'll show you every tile you've unlocked that relates to transport, like subway things and your bus and stuff like that, as well as tiles that relate to that skill that you haven't unlocked anything near. That'll show up as an opaque square, but it's good to know what direction to move along in the tree if you have a certain focus, which I didn't know until I started doing this write-up. So that's a little heads up for you all. So now you're whizzing through the skill tree, unlocking stuff left and right, getting those lamps so you can keep your park open longer, getting that chocolate bar vending machine so everyone goes wild over it, and now you got wind turbines to collect energy, and you're doing so good, and oh my god, it's 4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. You stayed up till 4 a.m. You've been sucked into the time stream. It's just what this game does. Each day doesn't take long to complete, and it feels even shorter as you scroll through your cute pixelated park, making sure your animals have enough food and toys. By the way, can I recommend the trampoline? Nothing is funnier than a goose on a trampoline, except for two geese on a trampoline. And you're placing your decorations on your newly bought land, making sure your park is pretty and efficient, and then you tab over to check what animals you can trade to the Tokyo Zoo. At the end of the day, there's always something left undone, though. So maybe at the end of the day, you're still waiting on the clone of that tradable bunny rabbit variant that the Tokyo Zoo wants. Or maybe you're hiring a new zookeeper to take care of your overcrowded monkey enclosure. Or maybe you're just waiting on those last few research points to accumulate so you can finally buy that surveillance hut to keep track of black market dealers and whiny YouTube influencers who give you a bad rating if you don't let them pet your capybaras. No matter what your goal is, there's always a little something left over for the next day. So let's build a zoo is easily the most just one more game that I've played in a long time. So long, in fact, that it reminds me of an old favorite that I sunk so many hours into as a child. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 for the PC. I used to sit at my father's old Gateway computer with my brother, or sometimes he'd sit, so I'd have to stand, but either way, we would plug away at this ancient isometric classic. In it, you could design your very own roller coasters and test them out, making high-speed turns and thrilling loops that would keep your guests coming back for more. My brother and I worked together to design wild and winding rides to put in our park, working towards the long-term goals that the game would set before us. Big things like make $300,000 by year 3 or something like that, and it would just plop you down in the dirtiest, tiniest park with one ride and no money and good luck. But we took that challenge. And we also did our own immoral things, maybe. Like if a park goer didn't enjoy themselves, it would drag down your rating, right? And there's ways to fix that, you know? Cheats, like changing their name to Melanie Warren so that they would love your park. Or you could get real bad and pick them up with your pinchers and drop them into a lake. Goodbye, unsatisfied customer. Though at the time, we didn't know that killing a guest would lower your park rating even worse than having an unsatisfied guest. We just made the bad man go away, and it was simple as that. And once or twice, we'd even make really dangerous rides, like a loop-de-loop roller coaster that shot passengers right off the tracks into the air, giving them the scare of their lives before ending it very quickly with a collision. But even then, we were too goody-goody, and my brother would immediately load a save file and promise never to do it again. We'd get back to making our park the biggest and best it could be. And while there was no morality rating to keep us in check, we were at least incentivized by bad reviews. Both Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and Let's Build a Zoo have those short days, so you can squeeze in some game time when you've got time to spare. And a good mix of big and little goals. Far off goals like buying 20 plots of land, and more immediate quick hits like building a burger shop to make a quest giver happy. I think Let's Build a Zoo picks up that torch beautifully by making those goals more apparent, more directed, and sometimes more silly. Like, the developers of the game will show up with a quest for you, asking you to give them a capybara so they can use it to do Foley work. Or a kaiju enthusiast in a fursuit will ask you to get them a gorilla to put in the zoo so he can take a selfie with it. Now, I only have one minor gripe with Let's Build a Zoo, and it's that there's some things that go unexplained, like unoptimized structures. I think they drag down your facility rating, but nothing in-game tells you how to optimize your structures. I had to look it up online, and even then I couldn't quite put it together. Part of it has to do with having too many benches in one section of the park, which I thought was silly. At present, I only have 75 optimally placed structures and 150 unoptimized structures, which makes it sound like I let a 4-year-old place all my buildings. But maybe my walkways are too big. Maybe my buildings could be clustered better together. Should I load every free inch of space with vending machines? I don't know. And there's no like flashing indicator to tell me which structures are optimally or suboptimally placed. So I'm fine with my 17% performance score there. And don't get me started on my animal rating and publicity. They're both at 0%, and I don't know why. But do I care? Not really. It's just another measure of success in a game with what feels like 15,000 measures of success. When a day goes by in game and I've made $100,000, I feel great. When I finally make that rare hyena variant that the Moscow Zoo wants and they give me their polar bears that I've had my eyes on for a while, I'm happy. When I get the 5-star rating from the definitely fictional influencer Doopy Die, I'm ecstatic. And when I finally unlock that final bus upgrade and I can replace my fleet of low capacity buses with some real big boys, I'm delighted. And then the hits just keep coming. And then it's 4 a.m. and I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow and I gotta brush my teeth and go to bed. So, that's Let's Build a Zoo. If you like sim games, you're gonna love this one. It's infinitely enjoyable. Except I've banned myself from playing it because I can't put it down. It's not good for my sleep schedule, I will tell you that. But you should definitely play it. If you're a somewhat responsible adult, that is. Okay. It's the time for fresh ambition and new energy. It's the new year. So I'd like to ask, what are your video game resolutions for this year? Gonna tackle that backlog? Then what games are you gonna start with first? Or maybe you want to take more breaks and do more stretches while you game. How are you gonna have more fun this year? If you'd like to respond, you have a few options. You can respond to the tweet I'm going to put out, or you can tweet directly at Games in the Glade on Twitter using the hashtag GITGasks. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below the video. That's all I have for you today. There'll be more news and reviews every other week, so keep an eye out for updates in your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube, and follow the show's Twitter account at Games in the Glade for more. This podcast is supported by Friends of the Forest on Patreon, a link for which I'll leave in the description. Thanks to Puddles of Infinity for the use of their song, Porches and Universes, and thank you to Titsay for the beautiful album art. And even though our time together is coming to an end, you can always find your way back here, my world-worn weary friend. There's a spot here in the clearing, in the quietude and shade, for you to relax a while and listen to Games in the Glade.